Klaus Dona, welcome to the program.
Good evening, Russell. Thank you for inviting me again to your program.
Klaus Dona has organized over 30 cultural exhibitions in Austria, Japan, and Korea. He primarily focuses on Ooparts, out-of-place artifacts. These are artifacts that do not fit into the established archaeological or scientific record and therefore should not exist, but they do. Klaus Dona has been researching these types of artifacts for over a decade. You can learn more about his research by visiting unsolvedmysteries.info. Klaus, what have you been up to this year? I understand that you went to Armenia and
Yes.
A lot of very interesting things there.
Yes, a few weeks ago I was invited to fly to Armenia to stay there for 1 week to visit some of the very, very old and historical places there. And just by coincidence, a few weeks ago, I was watching the television program Ancient Aliens, and someone was showing pictures of Karahunj, which is 7,500 up to 8,000 years old stone circle formation and stone formation there in the south of Armenia. And he was talking about most probably this has to do something with aliens. I completely disagree with this sentence because I could visit Karahunj with my friends. They also showed me a book of a physicist, an Armenian physicist. His name was Paris Harouni. Unfortunately, a few years ago he passed away. But Professor Harouni did for many years personal research on these stone formations in Karahunj. And he found some of the stones with holes, precise done holes. And he explained also in his book that they used ceramic forms to put into these holes. And through these 3 of these stones, watching the sun, they could make a measurement already around 8,000 years ago of the latitude and earth size of the world. That means, if you remember in the Middle Age, it was said that the world is flat, and if you reach the end of the world, you might fall down. That means this is one of the stories where human lost a huge knowledge of the past, and that's why it is for me so interesting in researching on old traditional places and artifacts. As we were wondering why this stone circle is so precise done, and also the holes are so perfect made for watching the sun and the stars, we did a scan over this area with the technology of a friend of mine. And we found out that close to the stone circle there are graveyards, and the graves are in form of circles. So we are just wondering, maybe the formation of the stone circles have something to do with the formation of the graves. So later on, when I returned back home and I had a meeting with my friend and we discussed the visit of Karahunj, he said, let's do a scan over Stonehenge. We found around 5 circles of graveyards, meaning graves in circle form around Stonehenge, but in quite different distances. So if we would inform archaeologists in England, I don't think that ever they would believe us. But we then did other scan over the Easter Island, and we found also some very interesting things, but this we try now to get in contact with the university or the group which is doing now the excavations on the Maui, and we would like to get cooperation with them, and then we could show them also some interesting, very unknown places in Easter Island. And that means also again the Maui, for me, do not have to do anything with aliens from other stars. I think so. Then, of course, I visited some museums in Armenia, and in the National Museum in Yerevan. I was impressed. I saw one arrow bow, which was approximately 6 feet high, and the wood of this arrow bow is so thick that for me it is unbelievable that a man even with 180 centimeters or 2 meters would have been able to shoot one arrow with this very, very big and strong arrow bow. So I watched other showcases, and I saw also one very big stone axe, which remembered me on the findings of some of those oversized stone axes in Ecuador in South America, where there is also there are facts of human giants, which we come on later in our discussion. Then I asked my friends in Armenia if they do know some more stories or legends of giants in Armenia, and of course there are many legends. And just a few months earlier, a Russian archaeological team did excavations in the north of Armenia, and they discovered several human giant skeletons with a size of 3 meters, which is close to 9 feet, approximately 8 to 9 feet, meaning definitely for me some of those so-called giants.
Was there any dating done on the bow? Do we know approximately how old it might be?
No, I don't think. I didn't see in the museum that there was something written of the age of this arrow bow. It would be very interesting if they would do a wood age dating, which would be possible. But six feet, can you imagine, Russell? It would be very difficult for a man to shoot an arrow with that. You have to be bigger than a normal big guy.
You'd have to be at least 10 feet.
I would say so, yeah.
Do you think it's possible? You mentioned Stonehenge.
Yes.
Do you think giants built Stonehenge?
This is a big question. As long as there are no findings, I wouldn't say so, because you can only be sure if there would be an excavation of one of these graves, and it would show that they were bigger than normal size. And then also in the north of Armenia, there are stones in lines, and it remembered me very much on my visit to South Africa. I was 3 times there. Together with Michael Tellinger, we did the research on the stone circles, the 100,000s of stone circles in South Africa. And most of these stone circles are connected with stone lines. It looks like streets, markings, or like channels. And also the Karahunch formation remembered me very much with the so-called Adam's calendar in South Africa, which is age-dated approximately 80,000 years. And 100,000 of these stone circles, but there you can find a lot of information on Michael Tellinger's website. So it remembered me, and it could be a connection in between, at least a connection of knowledge. And the same was with hundreds and hundreds of stone paintings in Karahunch, around Karahunch and in Armenia. And there's another professor now studying these stone wall paintings, and there are so many similarities between the Armenian stone wall paintings with the Egyptian, with the old Egyptian hieroglyphs. Also, again, a connection between two countries, even they have a distance in between, a long distance. I took some books about the Rongorongo writings from Easter Island and also Harappa, the Indus Valley. And again there are many symbols which are very much similar. And as I don't know if I told you in our last interview, that we found stone writings, an unknown writing, the same unknown writing on stones in several countries all over the world, beginning from Ecuador to Colombia, in United States, in France, in Italy, in Malta, in Turkmenistan, and even in Australia. And there was one German professor, Schildmann. He was the president of the German Linguistic Society, and he was perfect in speaking and writing more than 40 languages. And he wrote a book about the decipherment of this unknown writing. He deciphered some stones from Ecuador, from the Father Crespi collection, from Colombia, even from the United States, from the so-called Burroughs Cave, which is officially a fraud, a fake, but definitely he could translate this language, and also he translated some writings, same writings from stones on in France, Glosel, which also until today is not accepted by the official science. Even the stones in Glosel were found already 1924. And he also wrote in his book that this worldwide unknown writing has many similarities with the writing of the Easter Island, Rongorongo writing, and the Harappa writing, Indus Valley. So again, when I saw these similar symbols in Armenia, it remembered me immediately in this global writing. And that's for me, there are only two possibilities, Russell. Either there was a global civilization, or at least a global contact between all the continents thousands of years ago.
Have any of the Ooparts that you've had in any of your exhibitions or you've researched turned out to be a hoax after the fact?
No, sir. We had some scientists who helped us to check some of the pieces, and not one time it was declared as a hoax or new made or fraud.
Now, would you accept if it was a hoax?
Of course I would accept, because the only chance to get the final approval on artifacts is through different scientists. That's what I always say. We need the help of the official science to get more light in the darkness of our past.
So when you're trying to verify the authenticity of a piece, what are some of the steps that you go through?
First, I have to find a scientist who is an expert on this kind of artifact. For example, 2001, before our first exhibition in Vienna, I got some pieces from Colombia, which were declared in Colombia by the Ministry of Culture as new-made artifacts. But when I was there and I talked with the owner, Professor Gutierrez, I knew that these pieces are really old, but they do not fit any known pre-Columbian culture, so for the official science, these pieces are new-made or fraud. So when I got these pieces to Vienna, I called two scientists, one professor at the Natural Historical Museum at the Geological Department. She is the expert on stone material checking. And the second scientist was Dr. Distelberger. He was the director of the treasure room of the most famous museum in Vienna, and he is also known worldwide as a top expert on old stonework and precious stonework. So they agreed to do a check on the pieces, so we did on each of these Colombian pieces an X-ray fractal research, and the material was lyddite. Lyddite is a very hard stone, which is nearly the same hardness like granite, but the structure of lyddite is like leaves, and it's very hard to work on lyddite. And when we had the approval of the material, Dr. Distelberger checked all these pieces, and after a long, serious checking, he told me, I cannot tell you who made those things, I cannot tell you when they made it and how they made it, but the only thing I can tell you, and I'm happy that I was here and I saw the material check personally, we are not able to do the same artifacts with the same material in our days, even with our high technology.
You don't have to answer this, obviously, if you don't want to, but are you a creationist or an evolutionist?
How to answer this question is very hard for me. What I found in several countries all over the world, I cannot agree with Darwin's theory. I cannot agree. Because humans are much, much older than we know officially in our days. There is, for example, Michael Kruno, whom I know personally, and he is a great researcher, who did a lot of research on the age of human. And even myself, I found in Colombia, in an area which is called Villa de Leyva, where you can find millions of fossils. There is one professor, he is professor for anthropology, professor for archaeological plant research, and he showed me several petrified fruits and vegetables, meaning banana, pineapple, corn, avocado, cocoa bean, all these cultivated and petrified fruits and vegetables. And in the same area they found a stone plate with a human hand skeleton and foot skeleton in the stone petrified, and the age dating of the geologists of these stones in Colombia is about 120 to 140 million years. So even at that time dinosaurs should not have lived, and even if we say we are coming from the monkeys, even the monkeys would not have existed around 120 to 140 million years ago. But then the big question, who would have planted fruits and vegetables 120 million years ago? I think ancient aliens would say immediately that must have been aliens. I don't agree. But there is another very interesting finding. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago in Bolivia, where they also found a big rock formation, and in this rock formation you can see the precise footprint of a human, and the age dating there is about 50 to 60 million years.
Going back to what you said earlier with the Egyptian hieroglyphs being seen all over the world, you mentioned Australia. That seems that's quite surprising. Let's talk to us about that.
Yes, I can talk now about it because the two Australian researchers, Stephen and Evan Stone, they already spoke on interview about this interesting finding. So they agreed that I can also talk about it. A few months ago, I received an email from Stephen Stone, and he heard about our scan over the Bosnian pyramid, that we could show Professor Samos Monagic there all the tunnel system inside the so-called Sun pyramid in Bosnia, and he asked me if we might be able to help them, because they found old Egyptian hieroglyphs encarved in stone formation in Australia. The translation of Egyptologists were possible, but still the official archaeologists do not accept these incarvings as original Egyptian hieroglyphs, because they are thinking maybe end of 19th century somebody did a hoax and he made over 300 Egyptian hieroglyphs in a stone formation on a place where normally never ever some people would pass by. So for me that doesn't make any sense. So it was even possible to translate these hieroglyphs, and one of the translations was saying that the second son of Khufu, Cheops, was bitten by a poison snake 2 times and he died and he was buried there. So as they checked the area around the stone formation and they didn't find anything, they asked me if we could do a scan over the area and if we could help them to find, if there is a grave, to find it. So my friend did the scan, and he found a little bit far away from the hieroglyphs an entrance, a tunnel system which is ending in a room. And in the room he could detect bones and precious material. So I sent this scan to Stephen Stone, and next weekend they went there, and they went to the place which was marked on this scan on a Google Earth picture, and they found a hidden stone wall, and they could open an entrance. They found a man-made tunnel, but after approximately 8 meters, it was blocked with fallen down man-made stone blocks. For me, that was an activated grave robbery trap, and they told me that many years ago there was a very heavy earthquake in this area, and I think through the earthquake this grave robbery trap was activated. So they are now trying to open it with an official geologist and archaeologist, and if they find really a skeleton and some artifacts, they might be able to prove that these hieroglyphs in Australia are original, and that would mean that Egyptians came already around 4,500 years to Australia, which until now also is, for the official science, incredible impossible.
Klaus, over 10 years ago, you came across remains of a 25-foot giant.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
2003, I got an invitation through Wayne Deloria, Professor Wayne Deloria. He was the most famous North American Indian. He was double professor, and he was known as the most correct and great North American Indian in our days, and he invited me through the catalogue of my exhibition in Vienna. He invited me to a private meeting with 15 elders of the big North American tribes, and the story of the 3 days meeting was giants and little people. And Russell, until this meeting, I had no idea about giant bones or little people or so on. But after that meeting, I came across on the internet, on a Brazilian website, and there was a report about an Ecuadorian priest, Father Carlos Vaca, that he found 1964 the broken skeleton of a 25 feet human giant. So it took me about 2 years until I could find the family of Father Carlos Vaca, because when I arrived in Loja, in the capital city of the province of Loja, where Father Carlos Vaca was living, they told me that exactly 1 month before he passed away, which was very, very sad for me, because I'm quite sure this man could have told me many, many more interesting stories. But I got in contact with the family of his brother, and they kept many, many bones, broken bones of this 25 feet giant, and I asked the family if I might be allowed to take some of these bones with me for research, scientific research in Austria, and they allowed me to bring some of them, and I picked up some pieces which I thought it might be a possibility to find out if it's real human or not. And when I brought these bones to Austria, and several experts did a check on them, they recognized 3 bones as looks like human, but it's impossible because they are 5 times bigger. And one bone was a big part of a heel bone, one was a nose bone, and the third one was a so-called os occipitale, which we have under our skull to make us able to move and roll the skull. So, as this was the explanation of the family and the bones and the identification that it looks like human but 5 times bigger, later on we found an oversized granite stone axe in Cuenca, which was 70 centimeters long, which is about 2 feet, very heavy, and you could see that on one place, on both sides, there once was a rope over it for holding it. And then we compared the normal stone axes which were found there and this one, and the difference is the one is approximately 5 times bigger than a normal axe. So again we have here the 5 times taller or bigger. Then we found in archives writings from historians, like one was Chiesa de Leon, which wrote at the end of the 16th century, "Today we found at the coast of Esmeraldas several human skeletons. They were 5 times taller than we were, and they were burned because the priest said that must be from devil." So, again here, and then I received from a friend of mine, an Ecuadorian researcher, Manuel Palacios. He sent me a photograph which was made in the Cuevas de los Tallos. This is a famous and most biggest underground tunnel system in Ecuador. And there you can see in one of the big holes a wall painting of a human, and the size is approximately 25 feet. So there are more and more explanations which are showing or pointing out that in the past definitely human giants must have existed, and all the legends and histories and stories all over the world about giants are not just legends, there is a lot of reality included.
I was watching a show, and 300 million years ago, the dragonfly had a wingspan of 2 to 3 feet. Now, today, the dragonfly is maybe 4 inches wide. Animals have gotten smaller. Plants, too. Plants and animals have all gotten smaller over the millions of years. 300 million years ago, the oxygen was at 35%. Today, it's at 21%. What I'm getting at here is that it's theoretically possible that giants could have existed.
Yes, yeah.
Is this 25-foot giant, is that the largest that we know of?
At the moment, yes, but there is the Russian Professor Muldashev. he is the most famous eye doctor because he did the only, until now, only one existing and functioning eye transplantation to a lady. And he did several times researches in Tibet, and he was one day allowed to enter into one of the so-called Samadhi tunnels, where there are people sitting in the lotus seat from normal size up to 10 meters, which would be a little bit over, I think, 30 feet. And nobody believed him. Even he is a member of the Russian Society of Academy, and he is the most famous eye doctor. Nobody believed him, and when he got a knowledge about the bones of the giant here which I have here in Vienna, he visited me 2 days. And he was talking about sleeping giants, because he said the explanation of the Tibetan monks is that these sleeping human, the body has zero function, but they are connected with the so-called silver string with the universe, and they explained that they could come back to life whenever they would decide it. And these Samadhi tunnels are protected through energy, and you would die if you would go into one of these tunnels. This is the explanation of Professor Muldashev.
Ooparts, there are a lot of hoaxes. People do create artifacts that are made to look old, but they are not.
Definitely. That's why I'm always, when I get the new information, first of all, I'm skeptical. Then I would like to see it personally. Then, if possible, we could have scientific research on it, and then you have the final answer. But it takes time.
What do you think the percentage of these things being hoaxes are?
As I saw some BBC documentations about hoax, people who made hoax, like the most famous one in Israel, who did a stone piece from the Temple of Solomon and other things. They are so perfect that even museums believe that these pieces are original. So it's very hard to say. But I did not have yet in the pieces I checked a real identified hoax. But there was once a collection of incredible Ooparts in United States, and I visited the place, and finally I found out that all these pieces are new made. He was a very famous anthropologist, and his research was sponsored mainly by National Geographic and Smithsonian, and he even wrote a book, and that's why I wanted to see this collection. And this professor passed away, so I don't want to mention any name, but he wrote a book, and it was so precise and perfect. It was mentioned how the information for this piece was found, how the expedition there, how the excavation was done. It was a professional report, archaeological report on each of those pieces with black and white photograph and everything. So when I got first time the book, I thought I have to see these pieces, it's incredible. And I read who wrote the book, and for me it was sure these pieces are original. And when I visited United States and I found the place of his wife, he passed away, I think it was 1 or 2 years before, and I saw some of the original pieces in her house. For me, those pieces were original. But later on, I took out my special glasses, which I was using when we had the transport of artifacts, of cultural artifacts like famous paintings to Japan. You have to use special glasses to check if one of the scratches was old or new one. So I took out these special glasses and I checked it from very close, and I could see that there is very, very fine textile structure in some of these artifacts. And then I spoke straight to his wife and I said, are these really originals? And she said, yeah, I explained to you. And then I asked her to take these glasses and I showed her the textile formation. And then finally she said, yeah, I told you these are original. My husband made them. But believe me, if I would not have had my special glasses with me, I would have said these pieces are original.
Yeah, they're very good.
Perfect.
The elongated skulls, there are so many of those that are fake too. Many are real, but many are faked as well.
No, I never heard about a faked one, Russell.
You never heard about a fake one. I heard about a guy that makes fake ones.
Really?
And he explains how you make them and he sells them down in South America.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a process of how you shine the skull.
Yeah, but it's a different of a real bone material and an artificial skull, Russell.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert.
No, of course you can make artificial ones, but if you hold this one in your hand and you check it carefully, of course you see if this is really bone, and also if you knock on it, the sound is different, like it's like a ceramic or whatever. I only saw elongated skulls in museums, and the most interesting museum I visited concerning elongated skulls is in Ica. That's the place where the Ica stones are, also in a private museum. And this museum is called Maria Reiche Museum, because Maria Reiche was a German scientist who did nearly her whole life the research on the Nazca lines. So they named this this official little museum Maria Reiche Museum, and in this museum I saw the most incredible elongated skulls I ever saw.
Yeah, I spoke with Brian Forster about those.
Brian Forster, a few years ago, sent me an email and he asked me if I can give him more information about the elongated skulls, and of course I gave him the information about the Maria Reiche Museum, and I sent him also some photos and so on. And then he appeared as the expert on elongated skulls, but that was only about 3 years ago he started. But we did already the research in 2000 and 2001 on the spot.
Very cool. Well, it's always an honor to talk with you, Klaus. It's pretty interesting stuff. I wish I could be you for a couple of weeks.
Why don't you take one time, your time, and you go with me on one of these trips?
Yeah, I'm really into it. I'm actually doing a vacation next year in February. I'm thinking about going to Vietnam, but I'm up for any kind of adventure.
We are planning next year, maybe in August or September, a 2 weeks trip to Ecuador and Peru, to some places which are not really well known.
Wow. Well, we'll chat about that after the show. I'm interested in coming along.
Okay.
Now, Klaus, I'm going to let you go soon, but what do you have planned for the rest of the year? Anything on the horizon?
Yes, next week I'm going to Bosnia. I have a speech at a big conference with many scientists who did the researches on the Bosnian pyramids, because even until today on internet you find a lot of reports about the hoax, the biggest hoax on pyramids. But believe me, we did the scan of the Sun Pyramid and we could show all the tunnel systems inside this so-called mountain. So for me it is definitely not just a mountain, because a mountain does not have artificial tunnel system inside. So for me it is a kind of pyramid. And then I have some conferences in Paris, not yet scheduled, but I think I have to go this year again to Armenia to do further researches there, and also to Bolivia.
And of course, if people want to check out your website, that's unsolvedmysteries.info.
I have to say we are working now on a new website, because this one is quite old, but you know, Russell, if you do a lot of researches, people always ask me, when do you write a book? I cannot sit several months in front of the computer writing a book. I said, when I'm gonna be 75 and tired of traveling around, then I start writing a book. But I prefer to make research on the spot.
You're still a young man, Klaus. Before the show, you even said that you could climb up a mountain faster than I could, and I'm half your age.
I didn't say that I can climb up faster. I said, let's climb up together and let's see who is first up there.
Okay, well, I took it a different way, but
no, thanks. I am in a good condition, and that's the most important. And what I'm really considering is we should learn from the past, because I have a wonderful daughter and most wonderful grandchild, and I'm really scared about their future. And I think if we study more on the past, what happened, for example, with the global civilization, there might have been several times global catastrophes on Earth, maybe natural catastrophes or even human-made ones. And when you read today's newspapers that United States and France and England is ready to attack Syria, then I'm really afraid about our future, but most of all about the future of our children and our grandchildren.
I think the Syrian thing has a lot of people concerned, including myself, of course. And even many of these ancient artifacts, they're under threat as well.
Yes.
Bombs are going, they already have destroyed many of the things in Damascus and whatnot.
Afghanistan, many of them.
Yes, just within the last couple of years.
And now Syria also, I'm quite sure also there are many, many old traditional places destroyed.
Yeah.
Why don't we learn from the past?
We're not a whole lot more civilized than we were 1,000 years ago. Not really.
It looks like.
Devolution, as Michael Cremo would say.
Yes, I love him.
He was on the program last month, and Anthony F. Sanchez guest hosted for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
I have to listen it.
Klaus Dona, thank you so much for being on the program. As always, an honor.
Thank you. It's an honor for me, Russell, and thank you very, very much for inviting me, and best regards to all your listeners.